All right, so this is IXL I.1. This is the first IXL homework assignment that you probably have in this class, and it is talking about multiplying variable expressions. So I've got a blank document over here in case I need to work or write something out, and then I also have the other screen where we will be working through each question. So multiply 7 by p. Well, I think that should be fairly explanatory. It's just 7 times p. I could exclude the dot, or I can include the dot to show multiplication. So for this one, I'll include it. This next one says q divided by 4. Well, if q is divided by, well, that means that q is in the numerator. So if I want a numerator, I'm going to take q, and it needs to be divided by 4. So I take q and I split it into 4 equal parts. 6 times u. So as I said before, we could use this dot. I'm actually not going to use it this time. I'm just going to do 6 directly next to the variable u, which implies it means that it's understood that there's multiplication going on between 6 and u. So go ahead and click submit. 6 times u. I could also write it as u times 6, but math grammar says that I should put the number first and then the variable. Divide c by d. So we see c divides c by b. Whenever we see that by, that means that's what's basically going to go in the denominator. So c is going to be divided d times. So c is divided by d. It's okay if we make mistakes. It's okay if I get one wrong. It's possible that I'll get one wrong here as I'm explaining this, but don't get frustrated. It's okay if we make mistakes, if we get problems wrong. Hopefully those are opportunities for us to learn and further our understanding about translating and writing variable expressions. So the product of 9 and w, well, that requires us to know that the product means to multiply. So I'm going to take 9 and I'm going to multiply it times w. We could say 9 times w or 9 dot w. I could just do 9 right next to w, and I'm actually going to see, I believe this works if I put parentheses in there. If we see parentheses, something right next to parentheses, we also know that that's implied multiplication. So it accepted that, so it knew that I was multiplying 9 and w. Next, I want the quotient of 7 and r. Well, that means I have to know what the word quotient means. Quotient means division. When we see the word quotient, that means that we're going to divide, and whatever comes first after the word of is my numerator. When I see the word and, that means that I'm moving down to my denominator, so r is going to be my denominator. So for this one, I read it as the quotient of the numerator, 7, and the denominator, r. Whoops, that r shouldn't have gone there. It should go in the denominator. So for this problem, I see the word sum of, I'll read it, the sum of w and 6. That requires me to know that sum means addition. In order to add things, I have to at least have 2. So the first thing I'm going to add is w, and I'm going to add 6 to it. Now, I can change the order. I could write 6 plus w. I could also write w plus 6. In either way, it should accept it. 3 increased by t. Well, that means I'm going to have 3, and increase means it's going to go up, it's going to get larger, it's going to gain, and if something gains, it's going to be added to the variable t. Here I multiply c by d, so I'm just going to do c times d right next to each other. I could use the dot. Let's just go ahead and use the dot here so we can see c dot d, and those two were multiplied together. Raise v to the 9th power. Well, 9th power is saying exponents. So I'm going to take the variable v, and I am going to raise it to, might have made a mistake there. See if I can delete all that. I'm going to take v, and I'm going to raise it to the 9th power. So we see that that 9 is now my power, my exponent, where v is my base. All right, so here's when we start to see more challenging or maybe more complex variable expressions, but we can do it. So it says raise 2 to the 8th power, then add c to the result. So the first part I'm going to read, and this comma in here is pretty important. So raise 2 to the 8th power. So if I want to raise 2 to the 8th power, well, that's 2 with an exponent of 8. 2 raised to the 8th power. Then I want to add c. And if I want to add c, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my right arrow on my keyboard to make sure that I'm typing next to it. And I'm going to add c to that result. So the result here is talking about whatever I get when I raise 2 to the 8th power, I'm going to add c to it. Raise 7 to the 6th power, then multiply the result by u. So it says raise 7 to the 6th power, so that's going to be 7 with an exponent 6, 7 to the 6th power, then multiply the result by u. So if I want to multiply, I'm going to take it and I'm going to multiply it by u. 7 to the 6th power, and whatever I get once I do that, I'm going to multiply it by u. Here this says divide 8 by w, then double the result. So divide 8 by w, then double the result. So I have to know that double means multiplication by 2. And if I want to divide 8 by w, well, 8 by, that means that w is going to be in my denominator. And if I want to double this result, whatever I get from this, I'm going to multiply it by 2. So I'm going to take it and multiply it by 2. I'm going to double it. Double the sum of Q and P. So we want to start by reading this one from the sum. The sum of Q and P. Well, that means I'm going to add two things together because sum means to add. I'm going to add Q and P. Well, I'm going to have Q plus P. And if I want to double that, I want to take that whole sum and I want to double it or multiply it times 2. So I'm going to do 2 times this sum. I'm going to take this sum and I'm going to then double it. So whatever I get in there, maybe Q is 3 and P is 2. Well, 3 plus 2 is 5, and then I'm going to double that, and that's going to give me 10. S fewer than the product of 9 and T. So it says S fewer than the product of 9 and T. Well, product, or not 9 and T, 9 and 2, I'm sorry. The product of 9 and 2, well, that would be 9 times 2. So 9 times, I could do dot 2, 9 times 2. And then I want S fewer than that product. Well, S fewer means take away S. Now, I could actually think about this. Do I know what 9 times 2 is? Well, I do. 9 times 2 is 18. So it's actually 18 minus S. I think this will work. So I actually had it right. It didn't want me to simplify it. So that's okay. I made a mistake, but we're going to continue on. So I guess it didn't want me to simplify it. It wanted me to keep it as 9 times 2. So it's good for me to know as well. Okay, so I went down, which is a bummer, but that's all right. Subtract t from 9. Subtract t from 9, and then add s to the result. So when I see from, that means 9 is going to come first, and I'm going to subtract t. And then I'm going to add s to the result. So I'm going to do that, and whatever I get, I'm going to add s to it. All right. Next, S increased by the sum of Q and R. Well, increased means to add. Sum also means to add. So here I'm going to have S plus the sum of Q and R. Well, that's Q plus R. And I want to make sure that I'm going to put this in parentheses because I want the sum of Q and R, and then I'm going to increase S by it. Okay, moving right along, I'm at an 80, so I'm going to go up to, we get up to a 90. So it says double V, then multiply 4 by the result. So double is times 2, so 2V, and then multiply 4 by the result. So times 4, 2V times 4. Raise a to the fifth power, then find the difference of the result and 4. All right, so let's think through this. I know that the word difference means to subtract. Raise a to the fifth power, then find the difference of the result and 4. Well, I know that I need to have a subtraction, so I'm going to build from that way. Difference tells me I'm going to have subtraction. The first part of my subtraction, right after the word of, is the result. Well, what's the result talking about? That's talking about a to the fifth power. So that's a to the fifth power. And 4. And 4. So this is my result, a to the fifth power, and difference means I want a to the fifth power and 4. Okay, here I have v divided by the difference of w and u. So v divided by, well, that means I'm going to have v in my numerator because it's going to be divided by something. Well, what is it going to be divided by? It's going to be divided by the difference of w and u. Difference means subtraction, and I keep the order, so it's going to be w minus u. Here I'm going to triple g and then raise the result to the sixth power. Well, triple means to multiply by 2, or excuse me, multiply by 3. So I'm going to multiply g by 3, and then I'm going to raise this whole thing to the sixth power. Add b to the difference of a and c. Well, add b, so b to the difference of a and c. Well, I'm going to add it to the difference. Well, that means subtract of a and c. I keep the order, I don't switch it. So that's up to a 90. You can keep going beyond this if you want to, work on getting extra credit. Maybe we'll do a few here. I can only limit these videos to 15 minutes, so let's see how this goes. Raise h to the third power. Double the result, then divide 9 by what you have. Okay, so let's think about what this means. I know that I'm going to have to divide 9 by whatever I get. So 9 needs to be in my numerator. 9's in my numerator. What's going to go in my denominator? So h to the third power, I'm going to double that, and then all that's going to go in my denominator. So I said I wanted that to be h to the third power. So h raised to the third power. And if I want to double that, well, that's times 2. For some reason, my fraction bar is gone here, but I'm pretty sure it's still going to take it. So add s to t, divide the result by q, then subtract what you have from r. If I'm going to subtract it from r, that means r is going to come first. And I'm going to subtract something from it. Well, what am I going to subtract from it? Well, I'm going to add s to t and divide it by q. So I need a fraction. I'm going to add s and t together, and I'm going to divide it by q, and that's what I'm going to take away from r. So I think that's, up to a 92. You're obviously not going to have the exact same problems as I had, but hopefully seeing that, hearing it, and seeing me walk through some of them and kind of talk through a lot of them will hopefully help you in going through this and maybe alleviate some of the frustration of getting problems wrong. As you see, I got a problem wrong. That's okay, but just work through it, be patient, and keep practicing at it, and you'll do great. So thanks for listening, and have a great day.